Alright guys, so it's been a while since you've seen my Mustang, but here it is. There's a couple new things on it since last time, but today what we're going to be doing is installing an air-fuel ratio. So this is an NGK PowerDex AFX air-fuel monitoring system, and this is going to help me make sure that the air-fuel ratio is perfect in this car, because as you know, it is a carburetor, and they can be quite annoying to deal with in tuning, so making sure I have an air-fuel gauge will make this thing run a lot better. Now, over here is what comes in this kit. So, of course, we have the gauge. It's pretty simple. We have a NGK O2 sensor. We have a long wiring harness and a bung. We won't have to weld in a bung because the Mustang has aftermarket long tube headers, which have a place for those to go. But I do have an exhaust leak on the manifold, so I'm also gonna have to replace that. It's pretty simple to replace this. To install this, all we have to really do is run a ground, a power wire, and a switch. Now we can do it properly, and that is run a relay. We are not gonna be running a relay for temporary reasons. Just because I want to just put it on a switch for now.
Yep.
So yeah, in the future, you can always run it to a relay so that when your car is actually on, then the gauge is on. But honestly, I only want this thing to be on when I'm tuning it. I don't need it to be on 24/7 when I'm driving around the car.
That is true.
Yeah. Anyways, what you'll need is, obviously, if you're going to be soldering it, you're going to want a soldering iron. You need solder, you'll need soldering iron, heat shrink, crimp connectors. Stuff to strip wires. You'll need obviously a wrench to install this, maybe some screwdrivers or a way to install the gauge.
Since we're doing a switch, we're going to be using switches. We have a whole assortment of them. The temporary reason for why we're not actually doing the relay is because we don't have any, and AutoZone charges $10 for that shit. It's not worth buying it for $10.
Yeah, we'll get it to working. Yeah. So do you want to tackle the O2 sensor? Will I tackle the headers, exhaust, gasket?
Check the car up first, right?
Yeah, check the car up.
Sitting right
in the rear of the car, just lifted.
Yep.
Alright guys, so we're going to be using this bung right here that came with the long tube headers. And yeah, we're going to route it up to the firewall, through the firewall, and it should be around the glove box.
Yep, so as you can see, we can route it right up near the bell housing of the transmission and then route it up near the firewall. And routing it this way will make it a lot easier for us to route it through the firewall near the glove box. Just wanted to show the actual angle of it. So that's a nice clear shot up into the engine bay. You can actually see the air cleaner. So, all right. So while I'm doing that, you'll be fixing the exhaust leak, right?
Yeah. So we got the old gasket out, as well as all the bolts. Here it is, compared to the new one. This is the troublesome, like it was in this area where I could hear the exhaust leak, and as you can see, these guys are pretty toast and burnt out. This is the sides that weren't leaking. But we're gonna slap this new guy in and go from there. Hopefully it'll be done.
Be really hot.
Cylinder 4?
Right? Is that how the order is on 302s? 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, cylinder 4 seems to be really fucking hot compared to like 1 or 2.
It could also be from the carb, the old carb and stuff, so.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna throw this new one in, and then we'll get to putting the O2 sensor in and the gauge. All right, so when you're putting in the new gasket, you wanna make sure that you have one bolt in on this side, one bolt onto this side, so that there's
If you look at the gasket, right?
Yeah.
It comes with these little J-hooks. So you want to just thread in, a couple threads on both sides. So when you just drop the gasket in, it just catches on those bolts to help you align it. So you don't have to use any sort of gasket spray or anything like that.
Exactly. Now with it still not like, you don't want it all the way tightened or anything. You want to first put all the bolts in, make sure it goes in nicely through the holes on the gasket and into the block.
Yep.
Then you're going to want to torque it to spec. And once it's torqued all properly, you're going to want to take the car to operating temperature, and while it's still hot, you want to tighten it again. If you don't do that, you will burn out the gasket. So, yeah.
Okay, so first things first, when you start with this whole air fuel system, is because of the calibration instructions, you don't want to go ahead and install the O2 sensor. All I did was just crack it loose. I removed the previous like cap that was on it, but we can't put it in the O2 sensor because it needs to be calibrated first, and that has to be in free air, not in the exhaust itself. So the wiring harness that's provided, we just shove it through the firewall right here. There's a nice little plug. And there is really no magic to it unless you want to remove the entire AC blower motor. But you remove this kick panel, you just shove your hand in behind there and you just feel it while somebody else is feeding it through. And as you can see, I pulled it out. It's right here. So we're going to have our thing mounted right here in the corner under the glove box. So just get the appropriate, length of wire that you'll need. Leave a little extra because you can always pull it out. And now we can start rounding inside the engine bay.
Yeah, so next step is, as you see, we have 2 wires. This wire right here, this is going to be going to the O2 sensor. So we're just going to route it nicely down here. Not too close to the headers, obviously, but they give us a lot of wire to work with. So we can even go here to the front and follow where the starter and the ground cable is. We'll see what we go with in the end. And then right here is your positive and negative wires. Yep. So I'm thinking we're gonna actually splice this red wire in when we're on this side of the firewall. We'll just splice it, put a switch somewhere, so we're not running even more wires here. So we'll just take this and we'll run it straight to 12 volt constant here, and then this will just get grounded out. I mean, this guy will get grounded out to
literally anywhere.
Ground. Yeah.
Probably chassis is best.
Exactly.
Which we should have a chassis ground over there from that relay that we had before. If not, I don't know. Okay, so this kit had these sleeves zip tied on, so I just took the zip tie off, and I can just pull this back now. And what I did is I snipped this red wire right here. I'm just gonna strip this, and I'll just wire in a switch right here. So you could also be doing this with a relay, of course, but ah, my God, this is a fucking headache. The copper got caught in the there we go. So I'll just run a little bit of new line just to give it some slack, and then we'll just make one of the holes over there bigger, and that should solve our issue. Now, if we're thinking about it, we're gonna let it dangle for now until we can figure out a good and clean location to mount it. Because right now I'm just gonna crimp some spade connectors on here, so I'll strip a little bit of this, twist the wires up, and then for this switch you're gonna want your blue connectors. At least just for this switch and specifically. So I'll just put it through here, it's poking out a little bit, grab my crimps, just boom. And that's good, that's not going anywhere. So that's one crimp right there. I'm just gonna need to solder this end. And then over here, I'll do the same thing. So twist this wire, twist these two together. Probably should have stripped it a little bit longer for a better mechanical connection, but I mean, just because I'm soldering, it doesn't really matter. And this looks like a clean joint anyways. So yeah, so we'll just give it a little bit of extra slack, just so the switch can dangle, until we can figure out where to mount it.
We'll stop it there.
Anyways, so we got a new little toy. It's the Milwaukee soldering gun. And I was getting a little frustrated at it first because on the box it advertises 750 Fahrenheit, but I was like, it's not even heating up the fucking wire that I need to solder. Problem wasn't the actual soldering gun, it's these little 2 words right here. Lead free. Solder's garbage. But anyways, I got the power wire hooked up to a switch. Like I said, we're just gonna let it dangle for now. It's soldered in, heat shrink over. So now all that's left is for us to just plug this in. I don't know what this wire goes to, nor it's like a Molex connector. Maybe we could plug it into a PC or something.
It's supposed to be like analog, some gauges. So if you have like a dominator or something, you can just send signal to it. Okay.
So while I was doing that, Alex routed all the wires and actually has them hooked up to power and ground as well. So as you can see, there's distribution block right here. Here's the power, and he ran the ground right here. So that's good. And that there is bare metal behind that because I remember shaving it off. Yeah. And the O2 wire You see you routed it with the starter wires and all that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's routed nicely. It won't come near the handles. So you gotta let this thing dangle. They say 45 minutes, so maybe we'll...
They say 3 minutes minimum. Best if you could do 30 to 40 minutes. So.
Which we should probably do, because we want this thing to be as accurate as possible.
Yeah, but it's gonna calibrate to this heat. Right now it's like hella humid. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll give it like 25 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yep.
See when we get impatient, and then we'll go from there. So now what you're gonna be doing is now. Fuck English. What you're gonna be doing is this. We're gonna be turning it on. Not the car. We're just be putting power to this. It's going to be getting very hot. We want it to stay hot for a while. And actually, where do you leave that? How did that calibration go?
Anyways, there's calibration instructions.
Yeah.
And
Okay. So we warm it up for a long time, right? And then we take the gauge, and on the gauge it will read air, like minus, air plus, and we want to turn the knob on the back of it here until it calibrates till it says cal. So it'll say CAL instead of air. And then we know that it's perfectly done. We can disconnect the power from the harness, and then we can just wait for the O2 sensor not to be so hot, put it back into the exhaust, tighten it all up, put this back where we want it, put it back in, install it, and it's all good. So it's not that hard to do. It's gonna take a little bit because we're gonna be waiting for it to heat up. So yeah.
But we will walk you through it, and we'll be doing that right now. Well, right now, we're just gonna connect the battery.
So it's on?
And you got it on, right?
Yes.
Alright, so it is on, and it has a timer for some reason. We're about to blow up.
Such a nice gauge.
Yeah, nice and digital.
Clear.
Has 2 7-segment displays, as I see. Maybe more.
Let's see what happens when it reaches 0.
I think maybe it's just a 4x7 segment display. We'll see. Boom.
So I guess it's gonna take time for it to calibrate.
All right. So we'll just let it sit. As you can see, we have the O2 sensor hanging in free air right now. A little convenient spot to just leave it. So you want it to heat up. It should heat up. It actually doesn't feel warm yet, but it will. So literally just let it hang for 30 minutes, and we'll report back, maybe in between, to see whether it is getting hot or what the sensor is saying itself. So see you then.
So, all right, guys. So after you have that countdown, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to play with this knob in the back. I turned it was clockwise all the way until it says air, and that the minus sign is on the high side, because it'll either be up here, it could be down here. So we're gonna leave it here for a while. We're gonna wait probably like 30 minutes, and then we're gonna dial the knob on the back until it says cal, and then we can disconnect the power, wait for it to cool down, reinstall it, and then have a functioning air fuel gauge. All right, so it has been 30 minutes. The sensor is definitely nice and hot. As you see, as we had it, it's in air high, because right now it's set to a position where there's a lot of air. There's no fuel, it's outside of the car, so this makes sense. And we're just gonna take this knob. I'm gonna turn it.
Hold on.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it. There you go. It is now calibrated.
Yep. So now what we can do is we can flick that switch that's over there.
Yep. So we just have a little switch dangling here. Not the final position, but just the current position. That's off.
See the lights turned off. And now you just want to let this rest until it cools off before installing it into the headers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go make some pierogies, and we'll be back when it's cooled off.
Of course.
All right, so it's been a good maybe 30, 40 minutes. And this thing's cool to the touch. So now we're just able to plug them in. And it should work. So we'll try that right now.
Exactly. And once we plug it in, we're going to start the car, get it to operating temperature, and as the manifold's hot, we're going to torque the bolts again to make sure they don't loosen and burn out the gasket.
Yep.
All right, so I have the O2 sensor right here. It's plugged in, so now I'm just tightening it down, and it does have a washer on it, so I want to make sure that the washer actually gets crushed. So I'm just gonna hand tighten it so when I feel it's, you know, safe. I don't want to crank it over too much because it does actually affect the longevity of the O2 sensor itself. So I feel like right now I give it a little bit more of a crank and it should be perfect. So just a little, maybe an eighth of a turn. There you go. And that is perfect right there. I can, yeah. Maybe I can give it a little bit more. There we go. So, obviously when I'm tightening it, I don't want to twist it, so I unplug the cables themselves. So now we'll be able to nicely route this somewhere, and then get this boy plugged in. So we'll just figure out a nicer routing location. I'm possibly thinking somewhere out here, but we'll see.
Okay, so main thing to remember is you don't want to start the AFR sensor when the engine isn't running, because it will damage it. It will, you know, kill the lifespan of the sensor itself. So we just have to reconnect the battery, which actually you already did. Nice. And just have to start her up. So after she starts, we can turn on the AFR sensor itself. That was instant.
Yeah, I mean, all the fuel right now is in the back bowl of the carb, but just gonna do a little calibration in the beginning, just getting everything ready. So yeah, there is a working air-fuel ratio gauge. And with this information, I'm going to be able to fine-tune the carburetor with all the jet size, power valves, and air bleeds and all that stuff. So yeah. Now, next step is going to be to probably get this car off the jacks, heat up the exhaust, and, well, not the exhaust, really the long tube headers, and then tighten those bolts to make sure that they don't unscrew and damage that gasket that we just put in.
That's nearly perfect.
Over 12.5, a little leaner, more power than big deep that way.
Perfect.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really? What was that?
12.4.
The whole time?
Yeah. The entire pole is 12.4. Yep.
It's feeling fucking good though, right now. Yeah. Well, maybe we go to the draggy spot.
How does steering work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, we should probably clean those poles up.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so based off those results, it was staying around, like you said, it was in the 12s, right?
Yep.
Which is what I like to see. But when we're just doing like little, like driving around town, like a little bit, like going from a stop, starting, it will lean out. It'll start to lean out, but then it'll go back to being in the 12s, meaning it's something to do with the power valve. I think, like right now I have a 6.5 power valve in it. I need to do research on whether I have to get a 8.5 power valve or a 4.5 power valve, but either way I need it so that the it gives more fuel sooner, and that'll hopefully fix that bogging issue. So yeah, so far happy with the air-fuel ratio gauge. Meanwhile, we got that unit right there. All right, So that's how you install an air fuel ratio gauge in a Mustang, especially an NGK one. There's not really much to it. It's simply just wiring up and then calibrating it.
Thing is, it's not just the Mustang. It could really apply to any other car.
Oh yeah, I mean, just that, like the NGK one, that can go in any car, but the same thing goes with even if you were to get some like eBay air fuel ratio gauge. You just need an O2 sensor and you're just gonna have to do a lot of the wiring yourself. This one was really easy because, I mean, the wiring was already done.
The wiring was already done, and the thing is, it's a carb car, so you don't have downstream sensors set up in the first place. So the long tube headers already had places for the O2 sensor to go. So all it took was just plug in that O2 sensor in, and that was it.
Yeah.
Really straightforward install. Obviously, it can be more challenging if you do have an EFI car. If I wanted to do that on my SVO, it'd probably be a fucking pain in the ass.
What, air fuel ratio gauge?
Yeah.
No. Just either put another O2 sensor in, like another bung, or you could probably just put a wideband and just like take readings off of it.
Yeah, but it would not be as easy as this, which is literally plug and play.
Well, it's because I already have the spot, but okay.
Yeah.
That's enough of our bickering, right, in the video, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy with it. As you saw, we took it on the spin. Seems like we were able to set it up quite properly, and we know what we're going to have to change in the future.
Runs really well and has really proper AFR ratios, or actually just AFRs, for a carb car. It looked really good on every single pull. So this Mustang out of the garage, this Mustang back into the garage.
Yeah.
So
sneak peek on what we're doing or no?
Nah.
All right, you guys are going to have to wait.